Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
You are listening to the Seattle Shrimp Tank, streaming to you live on Facebook. You can catch us every other week on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for our virtual studio here on Facebook until we resume broadcasting in our physical studio. I hope I can remember where it's located. I'm Brad Berger, along with my esteemed co-host Dan Wheaton, and you can always catch a replay of the podcast at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle, and now through iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or candidly, wherever you stream your podcast. Also, don't forget to subscribe our podcast so that you never miss an episode. And we are still available on iTunes. And if you are subscribed, no matter where that is, please rate our podcast. Your feedback helps us grow and improve. Our guest for today's podcast is Nick Hughes, founder and CEO of Founders Media Live. Welcome, Nick.
How are you?
Doing really well.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You got it. So, Dan, what tasty morsels do you have for me today?
Tasty morsels. I am not cooking anything up right now for you except what's in my head, and I knew that that's what you were talking about. You know what's fascinated me over the last week, and I know you just can't wait to hear this, right?
I cannot wait.
The Mars rover landing. So first of all, you must know I'm not a science geek because I don't know a lot, but I'm fascinated beyond belief about things like this. Everything that had to do with the NASA program, all of that. And I just thought this whole Mars landing thing and being able to see the pictures, I'm actually following the Mars Perseverance on Twitter. It has its own account. It just was real. In fact, I was watching it during that time and it was just very cool. So, and we could talk about that, but I had a thought that came from it. You know, that Mars rover Perseverance, I guess Perseverance, the rover, it took 7 months to get to Mars. And I have to think that those people in NASA who are doing all of the hard work and all of the years that it took to get to this point, patience is got to be there. And sometimes I wonder, in our quick-paced world where we talk about pivoting and being nimble and all of that, sometimes I wonder if we being business owners and entrepreneurs, and I'm sure Nick, we could talk to Nick about this as well, sometimes we lack the patience that is necessary to land on Mars, right? What do you think, Brad?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you. Because I think that, you know, I used to teach, well, and I still do, on something called the one-page business plan. And among the one-page business plan was the ability to create activities and strategies to achieve particular goals. And one of the things that I used to, with a lot of people that I used to work with, is I used to find that they were very willing to scrap a particular activity to achieve a strategy really prematurely. And I always preface it by asking the question, did you actually do the work the goal required? Or did you kind of half-ass it? Right. Or not really put all your might into it to make it happen. I mean, was it really that was such a bad, approach? Or is it that you just didn't execute the approach? And I will tell you, more times than not, and probably 9 times out of 10, the brutal reality was the lack of patience was driven from the fact that they actually didn't do the work and they didn't want to do the work.
Yeah. And that's interesting because I've also heard statistics in the past that said a lot of businesses that failed were almost there. They stopped. They were so close. They were within the Mars galaxy or orbits or whatever it's called, and they were so close. And Brad, I'm gonna actually ask Nick about patience and that concept because I see his head shaking. So now I think it would be a great time to introduce him. Nick was brought to us, or I guess kind of to me, from a mutual colleague, Bill Sablon. And Bill, so thank you for sending Nick our way. Actually, Nick, it seems like many months ago, and we finally are able to get you on. So welcome. Brad, would you tell everybody a little bit more about Nick Hughes?
You bet. So Nick Hughes is a successful American entrepreneur with business achievements in e-commerce, social media, digital payments, and technology startups. He excels at interpersonal leadership, communication, business, and product development. Nick currently holds the position of founder and CEO of the global startup marketplace Founders Live. In addition to creating Founders Live, Nick stays busy as an advisor to numerous startups and occasionally takes positions in sales or business development roles if needed. He also co-founded Callin'it, a fun fan engagement and predictions app for sports fans. Boy, do you have that app, Dan?
I'm going.
We paused the development on that. Yeah, we paused the development.
Fair enough. We'll learn more about that. Previously, he founded the mobile payment startup Seconds, as well as helped start CoinMe, a company built around expanding Bitcoin and digital transactions into the physical realm via Bitcoin ATMs. As a sought-after advisor, entrepreneurial speaker, and writer with guest appearances on popular technology and media outlets, Nick enjoys helping others discover their unique entrepreneurial path. Nick, welcome to the Seattle Shrimp Tank.
Yes, pleasure to be here.
So Nick, I did see you shaking your head, nodding in agreement a little bit about patience. And we're going to talk a lot today about entrepreneurial journeys, startups, and all of that. Before we do, tell me what you thought about, I guess, my analogy of landing on Mars and the patience and the perseverance of all words that it takes to become an entrepreneur.
Well, yeah, I fully agree, and I will even say that hey, that was 7 months. Try 7 years, and try years and years of working on a concept, an idea, and I'd be willing to go to the lengths to say, in the startup world, 7 months to reach Mars is actually a home run, and that's a unicorn, and that doesn't happen very often. Whatever analogies you want to use there,
yeah.
But the concept of patience is absolutely huge. I think it's, I think perseverance, the terminology, plus patience, plus intelligent work, plus being open to shifting and changing, those together are what make a entrepreneurial team, a startup team, in the right place at the right time to be able to build that. Yeah.
Well, Nick, obviously you've had a lot of experience and background in lots of areas that I find incredibly interesting. But I want to talk about your current role, right? And this global startup marketplace and Founders Live. Tell us a little bit about what Founders Live is, and how you help entrepreneurs.
Right. Yeah, so Founders Live, as you mentioned, we are a global startup marketplace and a community that brings emerging entrepreneurs access to people, resources, capital, and global exposure for them to be successful. And, I guess the short story, I'll at least give a little bit of background here. Being from Seattle, I actually started something in 2014. I created an event. I just wanted to get people together, have a good time. And, even that very first event, of course, it was gathering in person. We decided, hey, let's have a pitch competition. And so we pre-selected 5 early stage companies. Even back then, this was March of 2014. So about 7 years ago, very first event ever in the world for Founders Live. It actually was called Feature Friday at the time. It was a Friday evening, and I called it Feature Friday. And but we had a pitch competition, and each founder was they went on stage and only had 99 seconds to pitch their value proposition. As you know, that's difficult. It's a short time. And so we created that limit on that, even that very first day. Then right after that 99 seconds, they have 4 minutes to answer questions from the audience. We cycle through the founders in that fashion. When they're all done, the audience votes on a winner. And it was a really fun event. And, that was my let's just put something out there and see what happens. So I'll try to make this quick because we have a lot to talk about. Basically, I did that every month for 2 years in Seattle. I started to see that there was a community forming. I started to see that there was a lot of interest. And more importantly, people from other cities were reaching out to me saying, hey, that's cool. Could we do that in our city? And then I started to talk with other people and entrepreneurs around the world, not just in the United States. And I discovered that there was a massive issue. The massive issue globally is that there's everywhere. There is tremendously talented people doing amazing things in Zimbabwe, in Buenos Aires, Argentina, in Indonesia. But the fact that most of these individuals do not have access to the network, that the people building the things around the world, they don't have access to the capital, to expand their business. They don't have access to information in today's world to be relevant. And lastly, they don't have a global exposure. They don't have a way necessarily to get their message out to other cities and continents around the world. So we discovered that there was a huge, huge opportunity to bring the entrepreneurial equality, which we'll talk about, to people all around the world. And that's through the events that are now live streamed. When we get back into in person, they will be in person and basically a hybrid of that. But we have events, we have our global community, we have our platform and marketplace that brings all the resources and access together. And now we're just expanding out. We're in 65 cities around the world, 25 countries, and massively growing.
So it's interesting, Nick, that's fantastic. It's interesting you talked about the 99-second pitch. It sounds like, and we talked about this as we were preparing to start the podcast, this is a combination of the Shark Tank meets The Voice, right?
Yes. And if you think about that, that analogy kind of fits because, we're merging creativity, entertainment, that sort of aspect, and that just bringing in a little bit more creativity and entertainment around, innovation and typically startup and technology that could be a little bit dry. And so if you bring those together, that's what you see with Founders Live. And then more importantly, the 99 seconds, geez, what I have learned over the years is that is one of the things that people grab onto. People that watch it appreciate it because they say, it's awesome because it moves really quickly.
Right.
And then the founders afterwards, they're literally like, Nick, that was amazing. What I had to do to prepare to then figure out what my voice is, what is my message, what is the story that I condense into a minute 20, a minute 30, maybe at most a minute 39. It changes the founder and even the way that they speak about themselves and their business after the event. So yeah, it's amazing that combination really does work well.
So
Well, I
quick,
think,
oh,
yeah, I think that's an amazing service, because one of the things that I think most business owners have an idea in their head what they do, right? But they oftentimes have a very difficult time articulating in a succinct manner, and you're really kind of forcing them to hone that skill and get that message down to a deliverable, right? The elevator speech, if you will, the pitch.
Yeah.
So that in a very short period of time, people can, understand what it is that they do, either develop an interest in the product or the future product, and or as an entrepreneur investor, shark, if you will, angel investor, to be able to participate in something like that.
Well, yeah. And another thing that, something that goes along with this is, within 99 seconds, you need to be able to tell a story, and you need to be able to emotionally grip whoever's listening, at least to the point that they say, I want to learn more. And that could be an investor, that could be, a possible partner, it could be a potential future employee. Maybe it's a corporate partnership. But I can tell you that when so we've wrapped in, I'm going to give a shout out to Melissa Reeves. Her company is Story Fruition, and Melissa does a great job. She actually is our pitch coach that helps our entrepreneurs and founders that pitch in Seattle. But we're now actually starting to wrap in some other stuff, even larger level around the world with Story Fruition. But what she has done is basically help those entrepreneurs understand, even if I have a minute 39, I need to tell a story so that people emotionally and actually fully understand what the problem that or our company is solving. right? Every problem has this like human element to it. And if you can tap into that, you then get the audience saying, oh, I get it. Even if it's like a SaaS product that might be like an accounting software. Well, there's still like some things there that all humans can understand and kind of at least get. And so that's also what we're doing, is not only is it just a short time, but we're helping them understand there's a storytelling element to business that most don't fully get. And that's another thing that we bring to these founders.
So Nick, I have kind of a two-part question. 2 weeks ago, our guest, Ray Donahue, Brad, if you remember, Ray felt that there was a difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur. He thought a business owner like him could go buy a paint store franchise and manage and lead a paint. He thought an entrepreneur is somebody who actually creates something from scratch and innovates from there. So, Nick, I wanted to ask you, would you agree with Ray's definition, number one? And number two, regardless if it's yes or no, what are some of the important characteristics and qualities that a person needs to become an entrepreneur?
Right. First question, I would agree that there's a difference. Business owner sounds a bit more static, and entrepreneur sounds a bit more dynamic. What does that mean? That actually, to me, means entrepreneur brings in a bit more creativity. They're looking for the market. They might be starting from zero and finding what their corner of the market is. They want to get away from those bigger competition or bigger companies and get their own area of the market. So yeah, that I think that might be the difference. Not to say that either one's better, right? Quite frankly, business owners, in my definition, might probably have a bit less risky, and they just manage the P&L, and they're probably going to base.
Right.
They might, it's like Tim Cook versus Steve Jobs, right? Tim Cook is the exact business owner and actual manager at the highest level, great CEO. But Steve Jobs was creating those markets. And so I think that that's a good example. And then on the other side, a good question. I think that great entrepreneurs need the characteristics, or at least what do they need to have? They do need to have a unique insight, in my opinion, and a unique insight. They've discovered something about a market. They've seen a problem that could and needs to be solved in a different way. It's something that they have what's the secret? What do they know that everyone else doesn't know? That's number one. Number two is, I think that you need to be, in the end, if you're going to build an operation, you need to have some aspect of yourself that inspires people to follow you. You could be that entrepreneur in the closet or the room that just hacks something together and runs their own thing. That's fine. But in reality, great entrepreneurs have this unique ability to recruit others, to bring them around so that they're building a team, right? How is your team building skills and the ability to inspire people to come alongside? Because there's not a lot of people want to be that first, the founder, the entrepreneur. There's a lot of people that want to join this like early thing, that they want to be a part of it because it's really cool. I would say the last one is, this is a really interesting one, which is, at the same time, hold strong beliefs on the secret that you hold, that you see. So you're like, for me anyway, and we can get into this, but it's entrepreneurial equality. I believe that I believe 1 out of 8, so 1 billion people on this earth can and should be entrepreneurs. I believe that. They're just not reached yet. They're not served yet. So that's the thing I believe. But the other side of it is, have an ability to hold loosely some of these, or a lot of these thoughts of how you come to market, so that you can pivot quickly and you can find the market traction. So what I see entrepreneurs failing at is they're so dang married to their idea, and they never give up on, they're holding it too closely, and they just fail because they don't give it the loose, like, hey, we might need to pivot around here a little bit. We might need to adjust what we're doing into the market to then hit that stride, right? So you have to hold those two beliefs at the same time. And I think that that's actually a unique quality to entrepreneurs.
Well, Brad, we're hitting our stride here. We're hit our stride right into our first commercial break. We're going to take that short break to hear from our sponsors. And when we come back with our guest, Nick Hughes, with Founders Media Live, for a Hot or Not section of the show, We're going to see if Nick thinks easy for me to say, entrepreneurial equality is hot or not. So don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Seattle Shrimp Tank. And Brad, guess what? I get to read Sue's not here today, so I get to read for you. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
What would it be like to be in the best shape of your life, both physically and mentally, every day for the rest of your life? Have awesome relationships with the people you care most about, never having to worry about money again. What would it be like if you received a letter out of the blue and suddenly discovered you had 20 more years to live than you ever imagined? What would you do with those extra years of your life? How many lives could you touch? What kind of legacy could you leave behind? What changes would you make today knowing you had 20 more years in your future? What new big challenges would you take on? In fact, there could be some entrepreneurial challenges there Nick could talk about. So what would be next? Visit www.ideallife360.com or call 1-844. I'm going to say that again, 1-844-LIFE-360 to discover how to rethink, redefine, and reinvent the best years of your life.
Bravo. Welcome back to the Seattle Shrimp Tank from our virtual studio, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the Seattle and greater Puget Sound area. I am Brad Berger, along with my esteemed co-host Dan Whedon. Remember, you can always catch a replay of the podcast at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or catch us wherever you stream your podcasts, including iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. For our next segment, Hot or Not.
And Hot or Not is sponsored by our shrimp peeler sponsor, Port Ludlow Resort. Nick, this is where we are going to pepper you with questions about entrepreneurialism, work, life balance, who knows, maybe even some sports. But we're going to ask you if it's hot or not, and then tell us why it is or is not. And at the end, you win absolutely nothing. So Nick, is it hot or not? Entrepreneurial equality around the world.
It's hot. Well, it's warm and getting hotter, but
it's
yes,
getting closer to
hot.
Mars, right? It's past the sun hot. Tell us about what is entrepreneurial equality?
Well, in a straight talk, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what you identify as. It doesn't matter what country you live in, what language you speak. You for sure deserve equal opportunity to be successful, and more importantly, you deserve access to the right network. You deserve access to the right information. You deserve access to capital to grow your company. And you deserve access for your message to reach all around the world. So, that now, as you look at Founders Live, as we open, presence and these events and activity, like literally all over the world, Indonesia, we're going to expand. We're going to open 12 cities in Indonesia over the next three months. I mean, there's 270 million people in Indonesia, and it like they are the 5th largest population country in the world. And you can tell how hungry they are. And so the amount of people just in that country that just, if they have access to what you and I and us here in Seattle and people in Silicon Valley, like, could you imagine what the world would be like? Zimbabwe, Nigeria. I mean, I can go on, but that's what it's about. And so when you look at the global marketplace and ecosystem, when you understand that only probably a 10th of that potential has actually been served, like, that's what equality to me is like.
Well, I want to loop back on another question that's related to that, but I would like to ask a question, hot or not, membership or subscription based businesses?
I would say very hot. And I would say that my follow-up to that is it ain't easy to build a type of business around membership subscription.
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of one of my lead-ins. Is that how your company is currently, Founders Media Live, is currently built?
Yeah, so we, yes, in the sense that there is a premium experience to our platform, to Founders Live, and then there's actually, we have what we call our fan base as well. So it's free. There's a free experience, and really that's just you're getting all of our information. You're on our newsletter. You get attend to the events. I mean, like we have, Founders Live Austin happens on Thursday, and then Friday Friday we have Harare, Zimbabwe. We have Founders Live Lagos, Nigeria. We have Founders Live Fukuoka, Japan. And then on Sunday, we have Founders Live in Manado, Indonesia. And those are all free events. I mean, and those are streamed on YouTube. Anyone can watch them. In Japan, it's going to be Japanese, but everything else will actually be English. So, but yeah, so it's free to access all that stuff, and then we're building out a premium experience and community that people pay for, the monthly subscription, and so there's now like many different ways to interact and engage with Founders Live, depending on what your needs are as a member and as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I have a follow-up question to the equality conversation that we were having, because
Yeah.
It wasn't too many years ago, right? And I'll maybe peg it at maybe 10, 15 years ago, where, in the United States, as an example, internet and internet access and the ability to access the internet was pretty prevalent, right? It certainly wasn't as robust as it is today, but anybody who wanted the internet could have the internet, right? It was interesting to me because at that time, I was visiting some friends in Belgium. It's a developed country in Europe. And it was surprising to me how far behind a developed country like Belgium was as it related to the internet. They were coming online, but they were clearly behind. And so one of the things that you talk about, which I think is incredible, which is getting all that access to all the other people that the things that we take for granted, living where we live and having the access to what we have access to. Is that an issue for lots of places still around the world, just simply the ability to connect on the internet?
What the problem I still see is it's not like they don't have any ability. It is connectivity, speeds and connectivity depending. For instance, so we're recording this. This is Wednesday, and this morning I had a call with one of our team members in Accra, Ghana, and we're using Zoom, and he was dropping every 3-4 minutes and freezing, and I can tell you that, we take this so for granted that you kind of like, you sense yourself like, am I getting mad here? What's going on? And he gets back on and, he's like, hey, there's a rainstorm. Like it's like, it's having an issue. And so their connectivity is affected. But I can tell you right now that they are much more predominantly mobile than anything else. Their self-service and their mobile is actually more dependable from a internet connectivity standpoint. So it's not uncommon to have a call and they're using their phone more or less than a laptop. And so yeah, but it's still an issue. I mean, I could go down the road of a story. Like I actually spent time in Zimbabwe in 2019. I can tell you about that, but I can just say that it's it surprises you, but they have issues that we take. Again, it's like this never happens. Even if there's a rainstorm out there, you're still going to have good internet, and they don't.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is well, that I don't think that people really understand as well. And the experience is, it seems as though as we, the United States, as an example, a very technology forward nation, as we develop additional capability, that then becomes a new standard, right? So speeds and I can have 1,000 megabit download at my house, and so guess what? Well, I'm going to now create content so Brad can enjoy the full benefits of that. Meanwhile, somebody in another part of the world, it's like, well, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So listen, I don't want to get too far upstream on my next hot or not, but we talked about entrepreneurial equality. You have an event coming up a week from today. Could you very briefly share that information? Not very briefly, as tell us about the event. Tell people how they can take part in it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're really excited to have so I frequently have, conversations like this. We have our podcast, and then we have Founders Live conversations, and some of those are live in front of an audience, similar to this. And we're really excited to have a guest who, her name is Ty Stiklorius. Ty, she is a CEO of her company that is Friends at Work. And Friends at Work is an amazing new company that she's building out around talent management, entertainment, basically, that partners with leading creators and influencers, brands to elevate important voices and help them in their vision. Within that, Ty manages John Legend, Lindsay Sterling, Raphael Sadiq, amongst many other entertainers and musicians. And I will be sitting down with Ty for a conversation. It's actually a part of a partnership with Facebook. They reached out to Founders Live and me to be a part of testing of a new product that they are releasing around live audio podcasts in front of live audiences. This is definitely falls in the direction of Clubhouse and the things that they're doing. But we are excited to be one of the first that Facebook is testing out in environments in these new apps around these live conversations. And so it's going to happen on March 3rd. Ty is very much a leader and an incredible innovator, working alongside John Legend for, like, I believe it's about 15 years now on major projects. And one of them, and the topics that we're going to talk about, is what we call at Founders Live entrepreneurial equality. But what I'm very interested with this conversation with Ty, not only are we going to talk about what her vision, how she has evaluated talent, she's the one that discovered John Legend, and she met him actually early in college, and then they went their ways for a while. And then as his career started to really formulate, he approached her. They then got back in business. And what did she see in John Legend, right? What did she see as the convergence of creativity, entertainment, and entrepreneurship? That Venn diagram is exactly what I'm going to dive right into. So that happens on March 3rd at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And you can actually find those tickets. You can reserve your spot at ty.founderslive.com. So it's literally
ty.founderslive.com. Okay.
TY. Yeah.
Well, and you know what we're going to have to do now? We've got to do another break. I'm trying to be Sue at the same time, Brad, and I'm going to tell Sue I'm failing miserably. So we're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors, and when we come back with our guest Nick Hughes with Founders Media Live for the Plead the Fifth section of the show, we're going to find out what happens when things get weird. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Seattle Shrimp Tank.
The Seattle Shrimp Tank is brought to you by Whedon Unleashed. As a business owner, you don't have a professional life and a personal life. You have a life. And that life is full of both opportunities and obstacles. Your business is the vehicle to fuel your life. And if you run out of fuel because of a crisis, then your entire lifestyle is affected. Dan Whedon works with small and medium-sized business owners to assure that no calamity is fatal. Dan focuses on accelerating business growth while at the same time planning and implementing strategies on preventing, mitigating, and recovering from those obstacles of business and life. Through his consulting work and his partnership with First Underwriters Insurance to finance your risk, he'll make sure that you can confidently unleash the value of your business and lifestyle. To get a complimentary review of your situation, call Dan at 360-271-1592 or email him at dan@danwhedon.com. Tell Dan you heard him on the Shrimp Tank and receive a 20% discount on any work that is agreed to. Be unleashed and be well. And welcome back to the Shrimp Tank from the virtual studio, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in Seattle and the greater Puget Sound area. I am Brad Berger, along with my esteemed co-host Dan Whedon. You can always catch a replay of the podcast at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast wherever you stream your podcast from. That includes iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. For our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
And Plead the Fifth is sponsored by Port Ludlow Resort. Thanks to CEO Diana Smelland. Appreciate it very much, Diana. Nick, Plead the Fifth. We're going to turn up the heat a little bit on some of our questions. And I've got to bring up my questions. Here we go. We talked about getting a little weird. Plead the Fifth, Nick. What's the weirdest pitch you've ever heard that ended up getting a lot of money from one of the I guess the bigwigs?
Oh man, that's I get this question a lot. Either what's your favorite, or what was the weird one, and it's almost like who's your favorite child? Not that I have children, but it's actually hard to pick. Oh man, I can.
How about most memorable? And that maybe just that doesn't make it any easier, does it?
Yeah. Well, one that pops out. I actually traveled. I went on a world tour to the Founders Live cities and lived in them, and just like went to our events. This was in 2019. So when I was in Dallas, not the winner, amazingly, but they have built and they are manufacturing essentially robot quarterbacks. And when you see a video of like either professional or college, and they have that machine that's like throwing the footballs.
Right.
Well, they have built a smart AI aware robot that holds, I think, 6 or maybe 8 footballs, and then it automatically throws. But then the receiver is wearing a device that then the robot is tracking that receiver. So basically the receiver can catch with the robot. The robot knows exactly where that receiver is running a route. It can throw incredibly accurately, but here's the better thing. It can throw 70% accurate, just like a human being would be, like in a game where you're like, oh, I'm going to catch it like low to the ground. So this is a very smart, intelligent, connected AI robot quarterback that was 2 years ago. They're now selling it and manufacturing it, and they have a couple NFL teams and college teams that are using this now. And especially in COVID, when the players couldn't train together, this was something that was very advantageous. So that's a memorable one. And
I like that
great.
one. That's pretty
They're
cool.
Great. Yeah, it's called Monarch.
So Tom
Monarch.
Brady, beware.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, you led right into my next question, because it sounds to me like pre-COVID, you did a lot of traveling, going around to the various cities where you are expanding to. So plead the fifth, your culinary guilty pleasure.
Ooh, I would say this comes back to, I think I'll do 2 of them. The first one is because of Seattle. I am just a seafood for sure. And whether it's like halibut, salmon, crab, and especially when you travel, and if you're in a place that can have quality seafood.
Sure.
Like in Boston, right? There's just awesome, great seafood in Boston. So I would say my pleasure is I'm definitely a seafood guy. And then amazingly, so when I was in Zimbabwe, there's clearly a different diet there, but they definitely. So Zimbabwe, and then actually South Africa, their meat there is great. So I had some great food there. And then when you go to Argentina, I can tell you right now, a steak and wine in Buenos Aires, Argentina is probably if you are a meat eater, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm a wine drinker too.
I am.
It's probably
you're not offending
the best.
Me.
It's probably the best dinner you'll have if you meet those little characteristics there. And oh my gosh, so the food was amazing when I traveled. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you say that, because Nick, you and I have the same rule I used to do a lot of business in Dallas Fort Worth area, and I never ordered seafood there.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
Nick, finish this sentence. Live in-person events like the ones that you've held before, these will occur again in blank.
Early 2022. I believe so. Let's caveat that. When you think about Founders Live, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of people at times, like
Right.
in a small room. So depending on the city you're in, you know, there might be a 25 to 50 person, you know, they might have like, hey, you can now have 25 people in a room, but you know, that's not Founders Live. So for us, we're looking at, I mean, look, we're in March. It's going to be quickly summer. And I just have a feeling that larger scale events that are in a close proximity that don't require people to wear a mask, that's key for us. You're not going to be doing this. It'll be 2022. Yeah.
Thank you.
well, so and I'm going to agree with you on another subject, Nick, because by God, if we can put the Perseverance on Mars in 7 months, in 10 months we can probably get to the point where we're going to have 100 people in a room.
Yes.
So
Or we'll be
what's
sending them to Mars
Or we'll
to
be
get
sending
together.
them
We
to
might be headed that way.
will that be socially distanced enough? So here's a final plea, the fifth, for you, Nick. What's the mistake you made where you gained the greatest lesson?
You know, the mistake, I, the answer to this is, you know, my story is actually around my first real CEO position in a startup was actually 2011. That was the mobile payments company Seconds, and you know, there's a whole story there of how that all came together. But we definitely tried, and okay, and that was about a 2 year, you know, about 2 years. And I held on that literally that last 12 months was holding on and, you know, getting drugged behind the car, if you want to use that visual. And you know, there's a few lessons there, but I would say the biggest mistake on that was, you know, I didn't know what I didn't know. We didn't know what we didn't know. And we really did not get you know, the whole, like, getting the product in the hands of early users and customers, and then an appropriate speed of you know, in it, basically like improvement, iterate, learn, and get enough momentum on that early stage product to get moving. And we just didn't. And I think we built too much and then tried to put it in front of the customer and see what they thought. And then we went back and, you know, so we didn't iterate in public in the quick enough fashion. And then, you know, I've learned a lot about how you how a brand is actually built, and a brand is everything about the feeling and experience. Like, you know, you guys might not have been to a Founders Live event yet, but just this short time that we've been talking, I think you get like a bit of what we're about. And so I think what I've personally learned of being the founder and creating a brand and then creating a team that drives that brand, there's much more around that. So I attribute that failure is just like, oh, like the face plant. And I really had to look in the mirror and say, no, I didn't want to create a payments company. I want to create Founders Live. It just took the failure of that to then I just wanted to get people around me. I was lonely, so I put it on an event, and then all of a sudden the whole thing, building community, started happening. So that was the biggest mistake, big one, that led to what we're doing now.
Well, that's awesome. And you know what? We're out of time, believe it or not. These go so quick, and there was so much more to talk about. So, but Nick, we do want to thank you so much for coming on our program today. For our listeners that want to get in touch with you or learn more about Founders Live, how can they get more information?
Yes, you can go to founderslive.com. That's easy. That's actually our premium platform and community. You can check out the options there, but you can sign up for our fan club and basically the free environment and experience there. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you know, you can find me on any of the social channels. So feel free to reach out as well there. And then lastly, as I talked about, you know, March 3rd at 6 p.m. We are talking with Ty Stokloris. It's going to be amazing, and only going to lead to even better and in more, like even more of these conversations with these sort of people, celebrities, entertainers, entrepreneurs. And that's ty.founderslive.com takes you right to those tickets to claim your seat. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's going to be a busy 2 weeks because that's next Wednesday, March 3rd. And our next show from the virtual studio will be on Wednesday, March 10th, 2021, where our guest will be China Willman with Grit City Wellness. Make sure you check out all the replays on shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle and on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, or wherever you stream your podcast. And remember to become a shark. We all start out as shrimps.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.